Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live, talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynn@pghcitypaper.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello. Welcome to the show. I didn't mean to rhyme, but I did. It's a Wednesday in May, the 24th to be exact. And we have an hour to talk about the what's happened in the last 24 hours since last we met, or other stuff. Did you see the picture of the president and the Pope? I saw two pictures of the president and the Pope. I'm sure there were others where the Pope might have been smiling. But the pictures I saw, one of Trump's whole family lined up and the Pope. And Trump has got that grin on his face, which doesn't look quite real. And the Pope is standing next to him, looking absolutely grim. And that seems like rare to me, that you see that kind of face on that Pope. And then there's another picture that I came upon with the two of them, and the president again is like, and the Pope is absolutely stern looking. I mean, I was thinking what the Pope seemed to be thinking, I could just tell in that lineup of Pope, Trump, Melania, Ivanka, Jared, that the Pope must have been thinking, God, I hate some of the crap I got to do in this job. I mean, all the obligatory crapola that any president, king, queen, all these people do have to do. Photo ops and public displays. And he looked just decidedly miserable. Manchester, you're not going to hear much from me. The reason being, I can't anymore. I can't read about it. I know it happened. I know I get little headlines and little things. I just refuse to immerse myself like I used to do, getting to know the innocent victims, hearing their anguished families, looking at photos of makeshift memorials. Done it. Can't do it. I will tune in afterwards, probably, for so is there any way to secure large events with all the attention having been on people going into an event? The way we enter an aircraft, the way we enter a football stadium, baseball stadium, the way when I went to the Chris Rock concert the other day, my God, I was practically strip searched. I mean, these things we have come to accept, I guess, tolerate, understand, kinda. But on the out, when people are exiting, there is no security. And that is where you're starting to see the attacks occurring. Just right outside that periphery, and when all those innocent people come out. So I don't know how you do it, but I'll be interested in seeing how this further impedes our ability to gather anywhere. I don't know. So let's okay, those are just some things I thought. And by way of explanation about me not really talking about Manchester, what's the point? What's the point? Why is this, it reminds me of a question you ask at the Passover Seder. Why is this night different from all other nights? Well, the question, why is this horror different from all the previous horrors? I'm sure in some detail, yes, but otherwise not. Same kind of perpetrator, same kind of crazed reasoning, same loss of innocent life and attempt to terrorize and affect policy in the countries that these attacks occur. Terrorism is used because terrorism works. And in some way, I think by turning away as I do after a while, I'm trying not to have it work on me as much. I really don't want it working on me. I'm sick of it. So let's start with something more uplifting, okay? Really, seriously. The obit of the day. It's amazing how I do go to the obituary pages for uplift, but I do. No, it's not Roger Moore, but R.I.P. Roger Moore. I have nothing against that guy. This is somebody I never heard of, and I wish I had known her. Roxy, her name is. You can't do better than that. Roxcy Bolton. Lived 90 years. Feisty, spunky, don't mess with her kind of woman. She's a proud daughter of the Confederacy. Born in southern Mississippi. Managed to get through high school, but that's it. And then what she did with the rest of her life is just, it's mind-boggling. This woman is credited with founding the nation's first rape treatment center ever. And believe it or not, that was just 1974. She was instrumental in getting the Senators to begin the process of the Equal Rights Amendment that, of course, never quite made it. She persuaded an airline, National Airlines. I don't even remember National Airlines. What was National Airlines? There's so many airlines dead and gone, too, but that one I don't even recall. She persuaded National Airlines to grant maternity leave to pregnant flight attendants, or stewardesses as they were called then, rather than doing what they had been doing, which is firing them. As soon as a stewardess got pregnant, she lost her job. Roxy went in and, I guess, manhandled the National Airlines executive board, and all of a sudden they agreed, oh, okay, so that you can have the baby and come back. And then she went off on something that you would think is not that important. She lived in Florida, Dade County. And one of the things that really pissed her off was that all the hurricanes were named after women. She didn't like it. She didn't like the symbolism of it. She didn't like whatever the heck it's. She was all for equality. So she started on a decades-long push, pretty much by herself, to get the National Hurricane Center to start using men's names as well as women's names. Well, this was laughed at even by some feminists. Betty Friedan remembers in her memoir getting a letter from Roxy telling her that she was incensed at the practice of using women's names to name hurricanes. And I think Friedan thought, hey, man, I got bigger fish to fry. Or, hey, lady, I got bigger fish to fry. But a year later, Roxy got the National Organization for Women to pass a resolution urging the National Hurricane Center to cease and desist from that tradition. Every effort she made was just flatly rejected and ridiculed. And then she started getting really angry, and she said, well, why don't, you get off on the wrong track just with the word hurricanes. Let's name some of these things himicanes, okay? If they were named himicanes, do you think, now she wasn't serious about that, but then that got a lot of media. She said, just think with a himicane. You could actually name these hurricanes after, like, all those politicians in Washington, which were then 99% male, white male. She said, let's start naming these hurricanes after those, hot air spewing politicians. She said, senators love nothing more than having things named after them, so let's give them what they want. She said, I would love to see the headline, Goldwater annihilates Florida. That'd be good. She wore him down. 1979. She finally prevailed. After almost a 20-year struggle, she finally prevails, and the second hurricane of 1979 was named Bob. And with the official 2017 hurricane season yet to begin, but when it does, I believe they begin on the 1st of June. Some of the names in the mix are Brett, Don, Franklin, Harvey, and Jose. So all of that because of the indefatigable Roxcy Bolton. When she started to do this, people editorial seriously said that it was dangerous, potentially dangerous. Here's an editorial from the Houston Post. It's doubtful that a National Hurricane Center bulletin that Tropical Storm Al has formed in the Gulf or Hurricane Jake is threatening the Texas coast would make us run for cover. Now, I agree. I don't even know what that means. But Hurricane Alice would make you run for cover. Because what? Women are so fierce? Women are so destructive? I don't even understand that. That was an editorial in the Houston Post. Then, after we had been using male names for 7 years, this from the Washington Post. Quote, 8 years, and still this non-sexist nomenclature has a funny ring to it. Somehow, many of the male names just don't convey either the romance or the urgency that circumstances warrant. That's the Washington Post 8 years after we started. What did they mean? If anybody has a clue, let me know, because I actually I wasted a few minutes this morning pondering what the hell they could be talking about. And just the reverse, actually. So these guys, these editorialists, are saying that if you name a hurricane after a man, fewer people will take it seriously, and thus people will die, I think is what they're saying. Here are the facts. A study published in 2014 in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences found that, in fact, storms named after women have killed more people. Women-named storms are much deadlier. So, the study concluded that people do not take storms named after women as seriously as those named after men. Because a storm named after a man who is just assumed to be more violent, stronger, they hear that, Hurricane Jose is heading our way, and they take shelter. Hurricane Annabelle, and they actually, a bunch of scientists writing the paper said it well could be that a female name doesn't hold the strength nor the fear of a male name. Anyway, Roxcy Bolton, good job. Fighting up till the end. Tough old customer. I raise my glass. Okay. And now to whipsaw you back into... another quick question. So the local news in the Post-Gazette today, it says 11 jurors picked for Crosby trial. And I'd already read something about it in the New York Times, but I thought, well, I bet there'll be a lot more. It'll be more interesting to read the PG, just because the PG knows, just knows the territory here more, and it might have a little more local color. So I start to read it, but something catches my eye. This story is not from the Post-Gazette. The Post-Gazette didn't even have a reporter there. A big national story happening right here, a few blocks that away. And the PG doesn't send a reporter? Maybe they don't have one. That could be. This is a story from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Just something I noted, and I just want to say it upset me. Of course, a lot of things upset me. I hesitate to go into the Trump budget, but I have a feeling we'll have to be talking about it quite a bit. I just want to share with you a few things that I read this morning. Oh, the Trump budget as written may literally cost 1 million lives. Not in this country, but in sub-Saharan Africa. So who the hell cares, right? That would be the shrug that headline would get in a lot of heads and hearts in this country. But what it is, it's a program that was initiated by George W. Bush, that raging liberal. George W. Bush, who launched something called the President's, I'm telling you, it came from him, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief. And that was established in 2004. And it was established because Africa was reeling from the AIDS epidemic and did not have access to the wondrous drugs that we, luckily born, perhaps, here in the United States would have. And Bush had been told that the epidemic, the AIDS epidemic, was so out of control in sub-Saharan Africa that it literally was threatening to kill much of the population of entire nations. Namibia, Botswana. And President George W. Bush said, geez, okay, let's establish this fund and let's get these people money for the drugs that can push this back. When President Obama came into office, he expanded the program. And the spending that he and George W. did is widely credited with essentially arresting the AIDS epidemic. There are still 37 million people worldwide infected, including nearly 2 million children, so the fight ain't won. But now move to Trump. And his budget would eviscerate this program. Along with it, I mean, right now, you know how much money we're spending on it? I mean, for budgetary reasons, this is chump change. The United States currently spends more than $6 billion annually on programs that buy the drugs that people need worldwide. Literally millions and millions of people. We're buying the drugs for them because their countries can't do it and the people can't afford it. Unless we believe that if you're born, if you're born, poor in the wrong part of the globe, well, you just die. And the sense used to be in this country that, no, not if we could lend a hand. We can help. Trump doesn't see it that way. Not only that, they're proposing to eliminate $500 million in funding for contraceptives and other family planning efforts that mostly, of course, benefit women in poor countries. Melinda and Bill Gates, their foundation has been working, just extraordinarily and incessantly at combating exactly this kind of thing. And Melinda Gates, seeing that budget, posted on her Facebook page that the proposed family planning cuts alone, she didn't take on the AIDS stuff, anything, the proposed family planning cuts would threaten to trap millions of people in a cycle of poverty, cost unknown maternal deaths, and obviously lead to more unintended pregnancies. The United States, ladies and gentlemen. All right, a little more on the budget. Oh, look at this. Our budget is going to manage to raise about $36 billion in the next 10 years by, okay, you ready? By selling off major American energy resources and infrastructure, opening up vast new areas of public land, that'd be our land, for oil drilling, and redirecting state revenues from oil and gas royalties back to Washington. So they want to steal from the states. They want to further decimate our natural resources, and they fully intend, which is what when I was so puzzled the other day about the deal in Saudi Arabia, about the Saudis are giving us, what? Billions of dollars, but they're investing it in a private investment firm run by a billionaire buddy of Trump's, and then they're going to take all that money and they're going to invest it in infrastructure in this country. And I was all perplexed because, silly me, I thought infrastructure was one of those basic governmental responsibilities. I didn't think you turned it over to investment funds so they could make money on it. But the budget does say that. Listen to this. I mean, you'll find out things about the government that you never knew. For instance, there's an Office of Energy Efficiency and Renewable Energy. That's probably been around for I don't know how long. I don't know. But that's obviously about pulling us away from fossil fuels and trying to move us in the right direction. And it has, in fact, helped in nudging down the cost of solar power. And by the way, the cost of solar power has been bzzz. I considered doing it on my home 2 years ago. And the cost was still pretty darn steep. And I thought this cost is bound to go down. And it is going down. What's Trump going to do to that office? He's going to slash it by 70%. The Office of Fossil Energy. What? We got a fossil energy thing? Yeah, but it invests in methods for capturing carbon dioxide from coal plants and then burying it underground. You know, not having it go up there into the air, but getting rid of it. That's facing a more than 50% cut. The budget the administration proposes will open up the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge to oil and gas drilling. Something that we have managed to beat back before. They propose selling off half of the federal government's strategic petroleum reserves. They propose selling our highways, our bridges, pretty soon you won't be going over the Fort Pitt Bridge. You'll be going over the, Heinz Bridge to Heinz Field. And you'll pay a toll because the private sector doesn't do any of this kind of thing without wanting a return on its investment. We can be comforted a bit by the knowledge that Congress has something to say about this. And even a Congress dominated by Republicans will find a lot of this absolutely undoable. I mean, for often reasons that are craven, like I can't do this because then, so-and-so will pull money won't give me money for my reelection, or so-and-so won't vote for me. But I can't imagine. The budget, in other words, is a joke. Huge error in it in terms of how much money is coming. The Treasury Secretary said, there appears to be a little bit of a typo or snafu or something. It is nothing but smoke and mirrors. Nothing. It's just bullshit, if you'll pardon the expression. Chuck writes, I think I heard one of your emailers yesterday caution us that the release of this first edition of the budget is a lesson from the art of the deal. I agree with that. This budget is just testing the waters. It's a Republican wish list. They won't get everything they want, and they know it. It's a place to start bargaining. Well, I mean, that's not from the art of the deal. That's from, any bargainer knows that. Even I know that. If you're going in, you're asking for a raise, you don't ask for what you want. You ask for more than what you want so you can bargain down. It's not like Donald Trump invented that little trick. But here's the thing in the paper today that sort of blew me away. This is page 7 and page 8 of the New York Times. I'm just going to read you the headlines. Inside the American air war over Syria. Okay? Next headline. SEALs kill 7 in a Yemen raid. Turn the page. White House is split as commanders ask for more troops in Afghanistan. Okay. Apparently those are 3 wars we're fighting. Did you know that? We got people, and by the way, the Yemen raid, that we had Navy SEALs injured in this latest raid, which you haven't heard about. Somebody else is reporting, and I don't know if this is true. It's a human rights organization, and sometimes they are not necessarily a reliable source, and sometimes they are. But they say that we killed 7 militants, but also 5 civilians, including a 70-year-old partly blind man who was shot when he tried to greet the Navy SEALs, mistaking them for guests arriving in his village. And then, remember Afghanistan? That's the longest war we've ever fought. How long we been there now? Well, it'd be 16 years. Yeah, it'd be about 16 years. And now it looks like we want to ramp it up again. And Yemen, ladies and gentlemen, and Syria. It turns out we're doing more in the air over Syria than you know. I'm just saying. Didn't Trump's voters really like the fact that he was going to do America first and pull everything back here and stop being the policeman to the world? I swear vaguely, recall that. Okay. I've been carrying this thing around for a few weeks, and I have the time now to share it with you. I am going to just read the first paragraph. It's not big, but imagine a country rife with laws prohibiting mongrelization of the dominant race. Imagine a country with laws banning intermarriage, entrenching second-class citizenship for some, and imposing immigration quotas designed to restrict the arrival of inferior peoples. Imagine that country. Did you think like 1930s Nazi Germany? Well, you'd be right. But you'd also be right if your guess was the United States of America. There is a book out by James Q. Whitman called Hitler's American Model, subtitled The United States and the Making of Nazi Race Law. A Nazi war criminal. He was also a judge, a Nazi judge. His name was Roland Freisler. He said in 1934, before he was a war criminal, that had to come after the war, he said in 1934, when they were trying to figure out how to craft the laws to get at the Jews, you know where they looked for help? The United States. Hitler's judges, Hitler's lawyers found helpful guidance formulating the Nuremberg laws that stripped Jews of their citizenship and restricted their rights. And they did it by looking at American law. And as Roland Freisler in 1934 was poring over American law books, he said this. This is a quote. "This jurisprudence would suit us perfectly, with a single exception. Over there," meaning us, "they have in mind, practically speaking, only coloreds and half-coloreds, which includes mestizos and mulattoes. But the Jews are not reckoned among the coloreds." So he looked at our laws, our Jim Crow laws, and he thought, this is just exactly, okay, what we need. The only problem is we need to put Jews in here along with the blacks and the half-blacks and the brown-skinned and others. The reality is that a lot of Nazi law writers, the people who drew those laws up, regarded America, as a prime exemplar. We had them. We had the laws, didn't we? Whether it was laws preventing racial intermarriage or laws imposing strict limits on immigrants coming in from literally non-Nordic countries. People coming in who weren't blonde, blue-eyed, and pale. We had them. So, one more little thing from this. They don't teach this kind of thing, right, in history class. You don't learn it till you go to college, and then you might take a history class where you find out what. Right? Oh, and yeah. Celine says, but that's always an elective, so not a lot of people get the real information. So, one more little thing here. Before the final solution was even contemplated, laws restricting Jewish rights had to be written. You couldn't just start with, all right, let's round up all the Jews and kill them. No, you had to, step by step, you take people along. And where could guidance be found about how to write them? Where was race so much involved in the law? Where was purity of blood on the minds of lawmakers and accepted by the people? Where did the power of the state discourage or even prohibit races from even sitting together, drinking from the same water fountains, swimming in the same pools. Where was eugenics all the rage? America. Especially the Jim Crow South, but we all know any black person living in Pittsburgh, PA in the 20s, 30s, when these laws were written, would tell you it was the same thing here. So, I have not read the book. I don't know if I have the stomach to read the book. But know thyself. I read a review of the book by David Wecht, who is a justice of the Supreme Court, a new justice of the Supreme Court of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and yes, the son of Cyril. And he ends his review by saying, sobering stuff, to be sure. History. It's the damnedest thing. All right, back to some emails on budget. Ed writes, this is from Slate. Here's the deal. The administration says its new proposal will erase the budget deficit after 10 years. I mean, that's just one of the jokes in the thing, right? However, to get there, it assumes that its policies, basically tax cuts and deregulation, will send economic growth surging to 3% per year, allowing the government to collect $2 trillion or so in tax revenue. This is totally fanciful. You might as well write that eliminating the estate tax will cause an avenging nuclear lizard to rise from the sea and vanquish ISIS. But this kind of magical thinking about tax cuts is more or less standard these days. It's the next step in the administration's arithmetic that seemingly qualifies as a straightforward fraud or a hilarious error, depending on how you interpret intent. The budget mentions the tax cuts, but doesn't include any of their costs. Instead, it just states that they'll be deficit neutral, presumably thanks largely to their economic benefits. In other words, the White House is relying on tax cuts to both pay for themselves and then add $2 trillion to the government's coffers. It's essentially double counting their already dubious, believe me, benefits. Former Treasury Secretary Larry Summers wrote, "This is a mistake no serious business person would make. It appears to be the most egregious accounting error in a presidential budget in the nearly 40 years I've been tracking them." Yeah, it's not an error, Ed. I mean, Larry. It's not an error. They're con artists. They're flim-flammers. They're not used to, I think, having so many people seriously actually read the crap that they spew and actually do the math and then find, hey, you counted these few trillion twice. Henry writes, yesterday I got an email update from Toomey. What a son of a bitch. Talking about his commitment to Medicaid. Medicaid is on the chopping block in this budget. Totally. So I found it interesting that Toomey got out in front of the budget and said that Medicaid is a priority. Are the winds changing for Toomey? Likely not. But this budget is causing some issues for senators like him. Oh, sure. This budget's causing issues for pretty much everybody. It's Joe? Okay, we got Joe on the line. Hey, Joe.
How you doing?
I'm okay.
Okay. I had don't know if you've been reading them lately, these articles. I'm seeing more and more of them, and some of the people are pretty credible. They're saying that, I don't even want to talk about this, but they're going to strike the zone between North and South Korea on the north side first, and then they're going to hit the rest of the country. And this has been in the planning for a while now, since
Where are you wait. You're saying they, meaning us?
Trump.
Yes, us. America is going to attack North Korea?
We're going to hit between North and South. We'll hit the North where they have the buildup of military weapons, a big, massive buildup. Strike that first, then they're going to strike North Korea, where they're building their bombs and all that. It just sounds like a bloodbath to me, but I don't know. That's what they're talking.
Who's talking? Where are you reading?
Well, like you read Defense One. You ever hear that?
No.
It's military. Yeah. There's articles in that, and I can't remember the rest of them. A lot of times I just read some of it, and I can't read anymore. But some of the people are pretty credible in it. So.
Well, you know what?
I didn't know if you read anything.
No, I have not seen anything like that in the, as they say, mainstream media. None.
Unless it's just in the talks right now, just talking about it. But
well, it'd sure be, I mean, if push comes to shove, it'd sure be a great diversion for a White House that's trying to keep most of its members out of jail. I don't know. But, you see, the reality is that would result probably in the obliteration of South Korea, and China would go berserk, and Japan would go berserk.
Yeah.
I don't. The destabilization of it is mind-boggling.
I just hope they're just blowing smoke, these people that are talking,
Right. And don't think there's not a lot of smoke blowing going on, Joe. I wouldn't trouble your pretty little head with that. There's enough stuff. There's enough stuff. No, I haven't heard about it. Okay.
No, okay.
Okay.
That's why I thought maybe you read it.
No.
Okay, then.
No, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Nope. Oh, man. Sorry. Something he said made me think of something, and I wanted to write it down, but in between grabbing my pen and then still listening to Joe, I, of course, lost track of what the hell it was I wanted to make a note to myself to talk to you about. Maybe it'll come back. My sense is, don't go looking for things to freak out about. It's like an all-you-can-eat buffet, and, you don't want to make yourself essentially blow up. I mean, just take in information from sources you know to be reliable, and take it in sparingly, and protect yourself. That's all I'm saying. Protect yourself. I ain't doing so well myself. I mean, I do what I say, not what I do. And I always tell myself it's because I have to. It's this job I have. But I don't know. I really know it's not healthy. You have to be able to separate what is necessary to know so that you can do your job as a citizen. And action always makes you feel better than hand-wringing. So I just keep saying to people, get out, get involved. I spend a lot of my time away from here, working with Planned Parenthood, working with the ACLU. You can do the same. You can find places that you're moving the world forward. You're making, you're doing what you can do. You can't change the world. You can change your little part of it. You can work to push in the right direction instead of the wrong. I just suggest that action always makes you feel better. That's all I'm saying. Another story that I never got around to, but really I found upsetting, and it's coupled with a number of other stories. When Donald Trump, candidate, made a point of demonizing media, the press, literally called them the enemy of the people. No, I think Bannon did that. The enemy of the people. Said that they were lying to you. Said that they were, well, all these things. He was doing an extraordinary disservice, but I really want to say amount of damage. When one of the things that has made this country great is the First Amendment, the right of the people to look at the biggest person on, the most powerful person and be able to say, "You're a jerk." You can say it with a bullhorn. You can say it to his face if you can get near him. You can say what you want. You're an American. And that there will be a free press. A press that does not have the government saying what it can write and what it cannot. And because of the pesky First Amendment, Trump and a lot of the right-wingers, I just remember what I wanted to talk about. The backtracking at Fox on the Seth Rich slander. But that's another just sort of efforts to make media look like nothing more than propagandists. So these stories that you start seeing about reporters being manhandled, reporters being thrown in jail during the campaign, a lot of reporters said that they did feel personally in danger when they were covering a Trump rally. Because, as you know, Trump would put them in a pen. So there they were. And then he would point to them and he would rouse his minions. And there was a lot of sort of seething potential for violence. I won't even say the kind of crap they had to deal with personally on their phones, in their emails. But this little sort of inconsequential story that came out about a week ago, and I just didn't get around to talking about it, that at a hearing at the FCC, Federal Communications Commission, after the commission did its business, and after they took some questions from reporters, the commissioners were walking back down the hall to their offices. There are 3 of them. One in particular was somebody that a certain reporter wanted to talk to. So he's approached in the hallway as the guy is going back to his office and said, "Commissioner, I have a question." And the next thing he knew, 2 large security guys stood in front of him, shoulder to shoulder, and then backed up, pinning him against the wall. Pinning him. They kept him there for about 10 seconds, as long as it took the commissioner to exit the hallway and get out of sight. The reporter is a very respected reporter. His name is John Donnelly. Strangely, he's the chairman of the National Press Club's team on press freedom. He's also the president of the Military Reporters and Editors Association. He's a well-regarded 24/7, been doing it for a million years, reporter. Not a splashy one. You don't see him on the cable shows. He's just a dogged reporter. What he did that day was something he had done a million times. But now you see, it's Trump's FCC. And he said, I tried to ask a question of a public official in a taxpayer-funded public building. And I did so politely. All of that is true. Nobody is arguing otherwise. If the First Amendment doesn't protect that, it doesn't protect anything. I was holding, he said, a recorder, a pen, and pad, and I was wearing my press pass. The security official said, "Why didn't you ask your question when they were taking questions?" And he said, "Look, I'm working on a specific story. I don't want to have other reporters know I'm working on this specific story. I needed to talk to the commissioner one-on-one." And the reality is, it is totally common practice, has been forever in Washington and other government settings for reporters to ask questions or attempt to one-on-one after a press gaggle or something so that they can preserve some exclusivity for whatever it is that they're working on. Kathy Kiley, who is a Pittsburgher and is now the Press Freedom Fellow at the National Press Club Journalism Institute, made a statement about all of this. And she said, incidents like these, occurring under a president who has openly threatened a free press, take on a greater and more ominous significance. And they do not seem to be isolated. Kathy's right. I think I did tell you about the reporter in West Virginia, and perhaps you heard. Same thing. Tom Price, Trump's Health and Human Services, although that title on him is just so, it makes me want to vomit. Health and Human Services head. He was walking in the West Virginia state capitol, in Charleston. Totally public space, a public official, and that reporter also tried to ask him a question, and he actually was handcuffed and ended up in jail. This is what happens. And if we keep it up, there's going to be a host of Americans who are absolutely unacquainted with the concept of a free press. The good news is that free press and the intelligence agencies that Trump also ridiculed, right? Those are the two institutions that are going to take this guy down. And it will be sweet vengeance, but they'll only be doing their job. Seeking out truth. Trump and his minions can call it fake news till they're blue in the face. Sorry. It's truth. And speaking of that, Sean Hannity, who I talked about a little bit later, was finally muzzled. His boss, first of all, Fox News sent out a press release yesterday saying that they, I don't know if they apologized, but they said we did not do the proper journalistic scrutiny on these stories about Seth Rich, the poor murdered young man who had been working at the DNC, who they just created an entirely concocted, made-up story besmirching this young man's legacy, saying that he had actually probably been the leaker who gave WikiLeaks the stuff, and he was murdered by either the DNC or on the orders of Hillary Clinton. You never read any of it in the mainstream media because it ain't true. But Fox was peddling it, and Hannity especially. And when Fox News' statement came out yesterday, Hannity actually tweeted something to the effect of, "I'm not foxnews.com. I will not be silenced." Then his show came on at 10. And I didn't watch it. I was watching a certain hockey game. He apparently started out by saying that he will not be talking about Seth Rich. No, he got muzzled. That's good, I guess. But Breitbart will keep it up, and the Russians, who are still doing what they did before the election with their bots and creating these false news. I'm sure it probably came from them. These false news, these total concocted stories that then get legs because Fox picks them up. And again, a bright spot. Fox is not first, as it's been for the last 100 million years, in primetime programming. I mean, we're just talking cable news. So we're talking CNN, MSNBC, Fox. They ain't first anymore. They ain't second anymore. They're dead last. And Hannity, dead last. Thank God. All right, guys, that's it. I'm sorry. I didn't even get to my dairy cow story, which was designed to make you feel better, but we'll do it maybe tomorrow. Okay? Have a good one, and see you tomorrow. Bye.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.